Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Lads It's Tottenham. My name is John. I'm your host for this evening. And I'm not going to lie, I'm absolutely freezing in here. When I got in here earlier to set the laptop up, it was about 2 degrees. I've now gone to a rocketing 8 degrees in the garage. Fortunately, the electric heater's on. I've got a duvet. I've got a hot chocolate. I will power through. But joining me from, I don't know, about 1,000 miles away or so, from Vienna, it's the Harlow Globetrotter himself, HG. How are you?
You know what? I actually have no idea how far away I am. I really don't know. But I'm good. I feel like it's actually warmer here than it is there, which can't really be true, but maybe it is. Yeah, and it's fun to be excited by Spurs again. It only took one game, and suddenly we are all smiles.
Yeah, I mean, you aren't in a converted garage, are you? So that's probably part of the why it's
No, but I
warm
mean,
in there.
I mean outside in general. I mean, I don't know about my house compared to a garage, but yeah, but Vienna is not as cold as it probably should be.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it is going to be about -4 overnight over here. And so, yeah, I was due to do a 22-mile run tomorrow, which meant leaving at 6 a.m., but I've sacked that off to Sunday. I've just
Got
got to
the
make sure I leave early enough to get home for the 12:30 kickoff, which is a bit inconvenient. But there you go. And joining us, number one son, who turned 22 yesterday. How are you, James?
I'm grand. Just helped my mate through a bad breakup, but he's all right. Played a few games of pool. I had to stand there just to emphasize how cold it is on the south coast in the UK right now. We went into the pub. We're indoors. I had a jacket on. I was still cold, and we had to go stand by their open fire to warm up. So there you go.
There you go. It's -55 in the UK. Brilliant. And joining us from the excellent Oh So Spurs, it's a good friend of mine in HG's. It's Jim.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for having me on to the new Lads It's Tottenham brand. Loving it. So yeah, pleasure to be on.
And Jim's just come from another stream, and on Wednesday he was going around the stadium interviewing every YouTuber in the world. I think you had the We Are Tottenham TV boys. You had Sean, our very good friend Butler, on there as well. And great little video. If you haven't watched it, go on to Oh So Spurs YouTube channel and give a little watch. There's a little bit of match footage in there, and there's interviews beforehand. And the way this YouTube stuff of all the YouTubers is going is great. I think different content. Sean himself did his own video. We interviewed loads of people in the stadium beforehand, and gave quite an interesting insight in people's view of Ange as well. I think there seems to be a very different view when you speak to people at the stadium than the minority maybe on the internet and YouTube who've been Ange out. Although that seems to have gone quiet in the last few days, interestingly. Anyway, let's get on to the game. So obviously we had Liverpool. I think most of us thought if we could get a draw, it'd be a good result. So this was the starting lineup, HG. Not there was much for him to choose. Did you disagree with that at all?
No, that's what I
Move along.
wanted. That's what I wanted. Like I do, on my Facebook page, not always, but I usually put a team up of what I want to see, and I decided against it because I just didn't want to deal with all the Johnson hate. But yeah, bearing in mind that we had a couple of midfielders suspended, our back four is pretty much our back four. The question was, do you play Johnson or not, and what do you do with the goalkeeper? And I wanted to see Kinsky start, so I was happy with this.
Yeah. And obviously we had the unfortunate incident with Rodrigo Bentancur after about 6 minutes where he managed to knock himself out, it looks like, diving for a ball and not putting his hands out to save himself, which, fortunately it was that and nothing else, because it could have been far worse. And I certainly had Fabrice Mwamba and Christian Eriksen memories coming back to me at that point. So we did end up with Brennan Johnson on the wing, which I'm sure, James, you were delighted by. You've always been a bit of a Brennan supporter, although I know that's waning in recent times.
I mean, he's Welsh, so it doesn't matter if he's terrible. He's Welsh, so he's the best player in the world, in my view. I mean, like, looking at the lineup, I would have probably started Werner over Son. I get Son, he's a big game player, but he has been poor lately. He's lacking a bit of pace. And actually, against a team like Liverpool, who play a high line, Timo is good at one thing, which is running. Timo is rapid, and he's pretty good looking, but he's really good at running. And I think Kulu, as much as I love him, he's not really the kind of guy to make runs in behind. Timo does at least offer that, and I would have probably started Timo Werner. That's the only difference that I made to the starting lineup. But yeah, Brennan's the kind of guy, a bit like a Paul Scholes, right? or Raheem Sterling. If the team's playing well, he will get on the end of any chance you give him, but he's not going to create any chances for anybody. He's the kind of guy who taps in the cross, but he's not the kind of guy to create the cross. So I kind of think in a game like that, he's not really suitable to play right wing.
Jim, Alexandru is saying, evening, really want to see Kinsky start, and oh boy, what a keeper. Did you think he would start and did you want him to start, or did you think Austin had sort of deserved after his performance against Newcastle to stay in?
No, I think if Austin was desperate to start football games, he'd have left Tottenham 5 years ago. I think he's quite happy where he is. I don't think we need to feel any guilt that he's not starting another game. He did really well in his moment of need when we had him, but hopefully we don't have that moment of need again. But yeah, Kinsky was outstanding. I wasn't obviously completely certain on him before because I didn't know much about him, but we interviewed a Slavia Prague coach the other week, and when he was telling us about his attributes, about how good his ball distribution is, about how well he's held himself in the Champions League and Europa League, but also about his personality, then I was so excited. When he said, Kinsky was asked in an interview, what do you do to unwind? Where do you go on holiday? And he said, I'll do that when I finish playing. I've got to focus. And I just thought, yeah, I can see why Ange wants you. You're that kind of mold of personality, of the type of player that he really wants in and around Spurs. And the Slavia Prague coach and fans, they were saying, look, this guy is our next big thing. Like, we look at him as the next Petr Cech. He is the biggest hope we've had come out of our academy. Well, it wasn't from their academy, actually. They did sign him, but he did spend a little period there training. But he's one of the most exciting players that have come through the club in a very long time. And you'll see it. They're so excited to see him play for us because they can't wait for him to prove the Premier League fans wrong, who were kind of doing that classic thing of never played in a big league, must be rubbish. So, yeah, really excited for him. He's not going to play that well every single week. He's 21 years old. He's going to have the odd clanger, of course. But we need to just remember he is 21. And for his age, try find me a better 21-year-old goalkeeper. You might take a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's interesting comparison with Archie Gray, I guess, who obviously comes from a footballing dynasty. And we know that Kinsky definitely does that. Both he and his dad and his grandfather with the same name all were goalkeepers. So he's come through. And I guess with Sonny as well, with that mentality that his father's given him. Definitely, you're a footballer. Your job is to play football. And for me, HG, I thought Brandon Austin was good with the ball at his feet and gave me a calmness. But this was next level calmness, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just it. Like, I don't think it's weird. We were talking before the show started. Like, he didn't make any saves that were outstanding, that were extraordinary. Like, he made a couple of good saves. He was obviously beaten for the one that Dragusin cleared off the line. However, it was the other part of the game that made him stand out. The fact that when he had the ball, it was like having an extra midfielder. Someone who could put the ball where he wanted to put it, had no problems chipping it over Mo Salah, I think, in the first 5 minutes. So a ball that we would all get nervous about another goalkeeper playing. To him, it was like, well, I know how to do this. And I think that was the thing. It wasn't really his goalkeeping that made us so excited. It was the fact that, okay, like, we want to play with the ball, and now we've basically got 11 outfield players when we're in possession. So that was exciting.
I think you always have to add, let's say Fraser Forster's in goal, right? If a goalkeeper who's a bit nervy is there, does that make our defence a little bit more nervous playing in front of a keeper like that? Whereas Kinsky, relaxed. I commented it to myself. I was watching the game with my mate who's an Arsenal fan on Discord. We were watching it together. And I just said to him, I was like, this guy looks like he's played top-level football for a decade. He just looks really, really relaxed and calm.
Yeah, I feel like the simple answer to that, James, is when you played football and you passed the ball to the worst player on your team, were you confident that they were going to use it wisely?
I mean,
right?
the worst player on my team I didn't pass to because I knew they'd give the
because
ball
it was
away.
you?
No, I was good. The worst player on my team used to give the ball away so nobody would pass to them. Yeah. But I mean, I could give a side tangent about something, but I won't. But no, if you know, as a defender, if you have a goalkeeper behind you who is calm and seems composed, that's going to help you confidence-wise, I think, and make you play better. And actually, he seemed calmer than Vicario. He didn't do anything incredible shot-stopping wise, but for his distribution, his calmness, and for his all-round general game, I think we might have our new number one.
Jim.
Yeah.
Start of next season. Who's going to be number one?
Who's going to be starter number one season? I'll throw it in there and say Kinsky, even though I think it's absolutely mental that we're discussing this after 90 minutes of play for a player. You know what, football is so fickle. He could have a clanger against Tamworth, and everyone will be saying, what on earth have we signed? Can't wait till Big Vic comes back. So, but yeah, based on one appearance, I'm going to go for Kinsky.
Yeah, I think the thing is with Vicario, the level of playing with his feet went up a fair bit, because Hugo was so bad with his feet, wasn't he? And then he had a few iffy moments, and obviously, really with Vicario, he's a shot stopper, he's amazing, but it's the corners. And then Brandon Austin came in at the weekend and had no problems with the corners at all. And I think Brandon Austin doesn't look as tall; he's probably a bit more beefy than Vicario. But then on Wednesday night, again, Kinsky looks so comfortable at the corners. They got, again, it was 1 degree and he was wearing short sleeves just in goal, just having it. He didn't care. He just get on with it. And as you say, one game, you can't judge a player really in one game, but there were some really promising signs. That was what I thought.
I can't remember. I think the last time I saw a Spurs debut that made me think, oh, we have a player here, was probably Dele Alli. And that was in a pre-season game. Right, and now when he nutmegged Modric all those years ago, like we all kind of thought, what? Who is this? Because again, like none of us had really watched Milton Keynes. We'd seen them play maybe one cup game where I think they beat Man United or whatever it was, but it was like we didn't know who he was. Do you know what I mean? So it's the fact that we watched it in a massive game where all of us would have taken a 0-0. Like none of us expected to win the game. And so to have someone come in and he looks like he's been made in a factory. Like he's 6'3" and he's as wide as he is tall almost. And like when the club showed the behind the scenes video of his like medical and stuff, like they were quite happy to make you know that he's a built kid, right? Like he has been in the gym quite a lot and brilliant. I mean, he doesn't look 21. I feel like he looks a bit older, but I don't really care how he looks. Right, he can be bald at 24 for all I care. He looks like I mean, I honestly sat there, and this is quite morbid. I shouldn't say this. I sat there and thought, I'm mid-40s. If this kid plays at Spurs for like 15, 20 years, he might be the only goalkeeper I ever see at Spurs again. Like, and I never think about that because I never think of any player right now who's going to be at Spurs for that long. But if we end up being what we want to be, then he could easily do that. And it's crazy after 90 minutes. Absolutely crazy that I would even have that thought. But I did. I absolutely did.
Was it your tweet where someone said, oh, he looks like he's been at Spurs for years, and then someone responded with, oh no, you sent this tweet to me. No, he looks good. He can't have been at Spurs that long. But I mean, I asked two of my mates. One is a Liverpool fan from the Falklands. Go figure. And one who's an Arsenal fan, but he's not that. He doesn't hate Spurs. He hates City and Liverpool. So bias in that sense. He just hates Liverpool. And both of them said to me, Kinsky looks brilliant. And one of the things my mate, George, my cat's meowing, 2 seconds. He said to me in the last North London derby, said to me, Vicario, your keeper, he just gets bullied. Texted me the other day and he after the game, he said, look, that Kinsky fella, he doesn't get bullied. He already rates him more so. And neither of them are Spurs fans, but they both have a less prejudiced view, perhaps, and they both significantly rate Kinsky above Vicario. Sorry, I'm waffling a little bit because my cat's meowing at me. 2 seconds.
Okay, you go and deal with the cat.
It was interesting. Did you guys? I was just going to see. They really did put 3 or 4 players around him, though. Every time they had a set piece, Liverpool, it was very noticeable that they thought, let's make the new kid nervous and add that extra pressure on him. And it's obviously they've watched the videos and seen that it works against Tottenham traditionally if you do that, whichever goalkeeper they have. But I do think there is a little element, though, of us wising up to it finally and nullifying it a bit. We do, rather than asking Pedro Porro to try push off one of their big players, we go, actually, Dragusin, maybe you should be doing that. You're got a bit more meat on the bones. And I do think he had a bit more protection.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also we've got Solanke now does stand in that Harry Kane position at the front post, doesn't he? At the near post on corners. And how many headers over the years did Harry Kane win? And it does seem Solanke's winning those, so they're having to go deeper automatically, which makes it more difficult. We could jump straight forward a bit to Tamworth here, because I don't know if you've seen the video, Jim, today of the lad who does the throw-ins for Tamworth, but he has got a proper Rory Delap-esque throw-in. I've got a picture of him here. If you just look at the arms on that fella, he spends some time in the gym, I think, doesn't he? But this is going to be quite a problem for us, I think. And I watched an interview with him, and he said that they've got 4 or 5 players well over 6 foot. So we'll be under severe pressure. It'll be interesting how Kinsky deals with this. And also, whoever plays, we haven't got much choice at the back, really. Probably going to have to be Dragusin and Gray, unless he decides to put Dorrington in. But Jim, did you see the press conference earlier? I'm not convinced he's going to play Dorrington.
No, it sounds like we're looking for a loan for Dorrington over everything else. And I think, actually, you said it earlier, right, in one of our chats. I don't think we should go really weak. Like, when I say weak, I don't think we should look to rotate too heavily in this game. To me, this is it's not more important than a North London derby, but going through in the FA Cup, given the circumstances of this season, is more important than your average league game this season. And we're not going to get into the top 4. I don't think. We'd have to average 2.3 points per game if we're going by average point tallies to do that now, and that's like title winning form. I can't see that happening. So, hey, we're going to be mid-table in the league this year, or 8th or 7th or something like that. Let's make sure we don't mess up the cups. How many times have we seen ourselves over-rotate in cups and go out early? Well, pretty much every season for the last 20 years we've done that.
Have you got me? My screen's going a little bit, and
yeah,
I've
we
lost
got
Jim.
you. You're just
my
frozen.
thing keeps coming up. So.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. So, half-time 1-1, good performance, I thought, HG. Generally in the first half, quite positive. And then we come out the second half, and Bergvall almost nicked the ball off Alisson. And then he got away with it, and he got it from again. And was it Pollard had basically the chance from the edge of the box?
Yeah, that's just it. It was almost Spurs taking advantage of another team's mistake. But Bergvall, again, just that youthful kind of exuberance of I want to get the ball, I want to close people down. And let's face it, he was well past Alisson, and yet Alisson still managed to get caught a second time. But yeah, once Pollard was in that position, he should have scored. Obviously he got it right to lift it over the keeper, but it was never on target. And obviously those of us that had to watch it on TV knew as soon as he hit it that it wasn't going in, because the camera angle made it obvious. So that was frustrating, because I think we all knew that Spurs weren't going to get many chances. I don't remember us really having a chance of note in the first half. I think there was the one that Solanke tried to flick in and he managed to hit his own knee with it. But it was we all felt that if and when we get chances, we have to take it, and that was a big one. It should have been 1-0 at that point.
Yeah, and then we had the moment you mentioned earlier where Dragusin cleared the ball off the line from Trent Alexander-Arnold. He scored a goal similar to that, didn't he, a couple of years ago at Tottenham? I seem to remember Alexander-Arnold from virtually the same position. So, Dragusin's had a lot of criticism from all of us, I think, and much of it fairly, and I'll come on to him in a little bit. But I actually thought that's probably his best game for Spurs. Jim, I'll go to you for this one.
Yeah, I think do we call it a mid-block? We love all these terms now. I think we're calling this a mid-block. I think that suits him more. I think basically what we're saying is when it's backs against the wall and it's not about progressive passing, he's a good centre-back for that system. But when it comes to, hey, I need my centre-backs to play the ball through the line, that's not a Dragusin strength area at all. But for this game, I think it's easy to overlook how important that clearance was off the line. If that had gone in, I think that game finishes 1-0 in the other direction by the way it was kind of swinging momentum wise. So he had a strong game, and we know that with Archie not being an outstanding deputy centre back, all considered, he's not a natural centre back, and particularly he can't. He's just not a big commanding type who can head the ball away. And Dragusin adds a bit of that to the team, and he adds that defensive steel to protecting the goalkeeper from set pieces as well. So yeah, it was a good game for Dragusin. I wouldn't say, wow, 10 out of 10, but I would say, considering he's had quite a lot of flack lately for being a bit of a lower performer in the team versus other players, I thought he was good. And he's always had a great work ethic, right? I don't think we can knock that.
Yeah, I think the keeper just gave them that calmness. They didn't need to be so deep. They were able to push up a little bit with the ball, push wider, so that when he can just chip it over Salah's head to Jed Spence or whatever, and also because he kept going long, Liverpool couldn't press us so much because they had to guess again what's going to happen now. So all these things, it just takes pressure off, and I think that's why to be fair, Johan Lang has had a lot of criticism, but I think he's got this one spot on. So then obviously we had the Solanke offside goal. Now I didn't celebrate because I initially thought he was offside because I hadn't noticed Trent at the far end. When just looking at it, I thought Kula was offside. I thought Solanke was offside, but it was I was streaming it HG as you probably were as well. So I didn't look at my phone at all at this point. What was your initial? Did you think he was off, or were you not sure?
I was just surprised the ball was in the net, because when you're watching on a dodgy stream, you're never too sure, where am I watching? Is this already happened? Have I seen this before? But no, when I saw the replay, I go back into my normal position of, if you need lines, it's whatever they said it was. That's it, right? If they said it was offside, you keep that. If they said it was onside, you keep that. Now, obviously, and weirdly enough, I think the linesman would be down at the bottom end of that picture, so he may not have seen Trent. But for him to have seen Trent and then still called him onside, you're just like, do we really need to be doing this? I know that when you put the lines down, I thought, you know what, they're going to say that Solanke's arm is offside or his shoulder at this point is offside, but it doesn't make any sense to have the lines, and that is always going to be my point on these things. If you think you need the lines, if the camera itself doesn't make it clear, and I think in many cases it is quite clear, then the goal or the decision as it is should stand. That's it. But it just felt like it wasn't going to be our night at that point, because we'd missed the Porro chance, we'd scored what looked like to be a good goal. By this point Liverpool had pretty much not their best team because Darwin Núñez was playing, but they'd strengthened from their original 11, right? And so you just thought this was probably going to be it. But so I don't know. It was disappointing, but I think initially I was just happy the ball was in, and we would go from there, see what happens.
Jim, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, look, I agree with HG completely. For me, VAR should be for clear and obvious errors. If it requires you to watch it more than once and you're still not sure, what are you doing judging that situation? I almost think VAR should have a 10-second countdown timer, and if it's not obvious, you just revert back to the referee's decision. It should be there to stamp out clear and obvious violent conduct that's gotten away because the referee wasn't looking, or an absolute clanger of a decision where the ball's gone over the line or clear offside. And even then, when you look at how they measured the offside, they measured it from where his arm was. And I'm like, again, these rules that make sense to me. You can't score with your arm. So if you measure it by where their feet are, he's onside. Gone.
I mean, the other issue is for offside decisions, the linesmen are told to not raise their flag, even if they think it's offside, and let VAR deal with it. Secondarily, the VAR footage is at 60 frames per second. Now, anyone who has a modern smartphone or plays video games competitively like me, because they have no life, 60 frames per second is very choppy. And also, you cannot accurately determine when the pass was played from 60 frames per second. Actually, I think it's more like 50 frames per second. Mm-hmm. So you can't accurately dictate when the ball was played. Therefore, is the player onside or offside? You can guess, but that's not fully accurate. Secondarily, players being determined offside because their arm's offside. Well, I mean, he didn't take his arm and shove it in the goal, did he? It's utter nonsense. I think when it's so close, the lines are touching each other, give the attacker benefit of the doubt. I didn't celebrate, and I really dislike VAR because I just think it takes all the joy out of celebrating a goal. And I love any football match that does not have it. Because actually, if you have to sit there for 5 minutes and go, oh, was the offside or was the onside? It's not clear and obvious, is it? I agree with Jim. And also, you can't accurately dictate if it is or isn't because it's 60 frames per second. So you don't know exactly when the pass was played. So you're not being fully accurate either. It's just nonsense.
It's also the
I think. Sorry, go on.
No, after you, mate.
I feel like the argument is that they're trying to make the best decision they possibly can, right? And I guess I understand that. Like, if the technology says that this is it, I don't think it's an improvement to the game, right? I mean, like there was an incident later on when Van Dijk, put his studs down Solanke's calf. Now, I don't think he would have done that deliberately. I'm sure there are plenty of fans out there who thought he intended that. I don't think he intended it. I think he tried to get his foot between the legs, and the leg was just there and it got in the way. It looks terrible at slow-mo, but that's just how I see it. I don't think VAR even really looked at that, which I thought they would do. And I figured, what you've seen those given, and you've seen it be a red card. And I think that would have been harsh. I barely think it was the yellow card. But when you see that VAR is getting involved in the minutiae of these things, but not in the minutiae of other things, then you just think, well, like we have to find a cut-off point here. And the cut-off point right now is less than what we're currently using it for, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I don't want to see VAR used. I don't necessarily want semi-automated stuff. I just want them to make sure that, because if you said, James, that the linesmen have been told to keep their flags down because VAR will deal with it, well, then just play without the flipping ref and the linesman and let VAR deal with everything, because it's affecting their decision making.
My understanding of the offside rule is the linesmen are told, unless they're certain, to not raise their flag.
But that makes sense. I do understand that, because it's like, okay, we'll let the technology take over, but then it's going to affect your decision making, because you just I'm really not sure, so I'll always leave it unless it's like 5 yards offside.
What also baffles me is, why is it all in 60 frames per second, right? Just to elaborate for people, my monitor that I'm looking at right now is 240 frames per second. This cost 180 quid. Why does the FA and the Football League not have the money for cameras and monitors that display a higher refresh rate? In other words, how many times it updates? In other words, how many frames can you look at from when the player passes the ball to get a more accurate view? Because 60 frames is terrible because it's really choppy. You might not necessarily understand this, but if you saw them side by side, you'd notice the difference very obviously. Why can't they afford better monitors? Like, do we need to have a whip round for better refereeing decisions or something?
The signal, though? Is it due to the signal being sent from the state? I don't know the answer.
They can send it in 5K. If you can send it in 5K, you can send it in 500 hertz 1080p. So they have the capability to do it. They've just decided to not bother. So,
well, on top of all that madness, there was the announcement, which, the new trial they're doing of, we put it out the speakers. Which I think this, to me, this is equivalent of your post arriving in the morning, and every time you open a letter, someone from the Royal Mail stands in front of you with a megaphone, and as you read, just yells and dictates what's written in your letter. Your council tax is due. You're like, yes, I know. I'm reading it. It doesn't. It just feels so bad. It feels like offsides as well. The decision is offside. Then we wait another 30 seconds. The referee ruled out the goal because Dominic Solanke was in offside position. Well, it just. Why are we adding more to VAR? We should be taking VAR away from the game more, not adding it more into the game, and giving these people in this control room more attention, which they seem to desperately crave. Anyway, that's my rant about it.
My assumption when this was announced a few days ago would be that you would hear the VAR talking to the ref. That's what I thought. So if there was a conversation to be said, like, I believe this challenge is a penalty, or, Van Dijk's raked down his calf, it's potentially a red card, go and have a look at the monitor, because then the stands would understand. That's what I thought was going to happen. You're right. It was after the horse was bolted, because everyone knew it had been given offside by that point. So it was a little bit stupid. Talking of controversial decisions, Mr. Diaz dived at it was a lunge by Lucas Bergvall, but Diaz dived over him, didn't touch him. got a yellow card, Bergvall, for it. And obviously we then had the later on incident. I thought there had been talk that VAR might get involved in diving. Because a few years ago, do you remember the FA did a bit of a retrospective ban on players who were diving? Now, I guess with this one, because Bergvall did dive in, and if he'd stayed on his feet, he would have been taken out by Bergvall. But it shouldn't be given as a free kick because he dived over it. Is there an argument that VAR could retrospectively look at these? I know there's situations where players just go down and clearly it's a dive and there's no player even attaching them. But is there an argument you could look at that retrospectively? Because that could happen while the game is going on, potentially, actually.
Well, no, I just feel like, if it's something like a yellow card that, usually it takes 5, 10, 15 seconds for the card to come out. Like, they don't restart play straight away. That there is probably something to be said for, okay, if I want to brandish a card, then we'll check it. Like, the ref can decide he wants to. But again, it's like, in a game of 15 yellow cards or 10 yellow cards, it's more realistic, then I don't want to have an extra 3-4 minutes added onto the game. I feel like they need to figure out something that makes sense. Like, yellow cards can change the game, red cards can change the game, goals, offsides can change the game, but like, you don't need 3 angles to decide if it's clear or obvious. And I feel like that's the thing. Like, if it's not blatantly obvious that a mistake was made, and we saw one replay of that challenge, and we all knew instantly that he hadn't been touched, you didn't need 3 of them. So there were other challenges in the game that probably, if they had looked at it, like I think Kulusevski got away with one where it looked like he'd hacked Curtis Jones in the box that probably should have been given a penalty. But it's just, at some point, it's like, just let them play the game a little bit. Like, if it's not a massively wrong decision, then why are we getting involved?
I think you have to almost decide as well, sorry. There are people down here with loud exhausts and terrible cars, and they like to rev them up because they have small penises. But I think you almost have to decide, are you going to let these challenges go and let the game continue, or are you going to penalise every single one of these challenges? I like to think of this in the context of my old football coach, who was a heavy chain smoker and a Leeds fan, but nothing Bergvall did in the game would bother him. He'd say, well in, lads, good challenge. Are we going to let that kind of football exist, which I don't think anything he did was particularly wrong. He was going for the ball. Nothing wrong with that. Or are we going to penalise every single technically it's a foul? Are we going to follow that route? Pick one or the other and go with it and have some consistency in the officiating. I personally don't think anything Bergvall did was worthy of a yellow card, and all the scouts lot are saying, oh, he should have been sent off. I mean, I don't care. I mean, you shouldn't have followed Trent Vernon, should you? But, have some consistency. Pick one or the other. Are we going to let people go for proper challenges, or are we going to be pussies about it and penalise everything? One or the other, and at least have some bloody consistency.
I agree with the consistency, because there are certainly games where the referees let things flow, and then there's games where the referees don't let it flow, and that's, you want a balance. Players want to know where they stand and what they can and can't do. But with the reason he didn't get the yellow, I think it's been quite publicised now. But for those of you who haven't heard the reason why, we've had this happen to us multiple times in recent weeks, and I was banging on about this. We've had a break, player gets taken out, but it's fallen to another player. We've moved on, and the referee hasn't gone back to book them. And we're like, why not? Well, it turns out it is a directive. As long as it isn't a, I can't think of the word now. One of you guys can help me.
Serious foul play or cynical
challenge. Yeah. Although a lot of them are cynical, I think. The referee won't go, and the attack continues. The referee won't go back and book them. So I think there could be occasions where, say we were 0-0 or 3-0 or whatever with the 90th minute at Anfield, and we've got a break on, and we know that Trent Alexander's on a yellow, and he takes out Timo or whatever, we might just let the ball run out of play now, knowing that he'll get a second yellow rather than trying to get that goal. There could be, and I don't see it happening because players will generally just keep going, but there is that possibility. And it's a slightly strange rule.
It's a nonsense
obviously
rule.
Ange came out.
It's a nonsense rule. I mean, it's absolute nonsense. Like, that was a yellow card, what Bergvall did. Clear as day. The fact that it isn't is because they changed the rules.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean you disagree? The second one, the one that you survived, you didn't think it was a yellow card.
Sorry, that's not a yellow card. He's gone for the ball very clearly. In my view, I don't think that should be a yellow card.
In a normal, if the ball had gone off and just we'd got it, he'd have got a yellow.
Oh yeah.
That's what
I mean, under the current rules of the game, yes, that's a yellow card. I just don't agree with those rules. I think they're stupid. I don't think challenges like that should dictate a foul or a yellow card.
It's look, I personally feel like that's a yellow 9 times out of 10 that in that game. But what kind of makes it all feel a bit silly? I think it's just in the order of what happened. If you reversed those 2 incidents around and the clear yellow happened at the start and he got a clear yellow, and then the foul that Bergvall got yellow for that wasn't happened afterwards, this would not even be remotely a discussion. And if the same punishment had happened for each, but you flip them around, suddenly Tottenham are the massive victims here. Liverpool have gotten away with another one, blah, blah, blah. I just think it's just such an over-the-top talking point that's been amplified by a very angry fan base who are struggling to adapt to the news that Van Dijk's suddenly form is sliding off a cliff. Their form is suddenly dropping off. They're getting a little bit nervous about, is this a bigger issue or is it not? And if you say, yes, Tottenham beat you with missing the majority of their squad, it's a big red flag for Liverpool fans right now. So the easier way to cope with that is just by saying we were robbed by the referee and just cling on to this incident. And I think they've really amplified the incident just way out of proportion. In the most, that level of debate over a yellow card happens most weeks. But this has just been blown out of proportion because it's semi-final and it's Liverpool. I
completely agree with you. I mean, even Arne Slot said after the game when he's interviewed, he said, great goal from the young lad, good hold-up play, good finish. I'm not interested in talking about the discussion. It evens out over a whole season. I don't want to talk about it. You're not interested in my views on the goal, but I think it all evens out over a season. And I thought, well, actually, he's pretty correct. I mean, Jurgen Klopp would have complained about it or something for like 2 whole weeks because he's Jurgen Klopp. But fair play to Slot for basically just going, no, who cares? Not talking about that. Refereeing decisions. Even Van Dijk, when he was interviewed afterwards, he basically said, I don't agree with the decision. I spoke to the ref about it, but it is what it is. And I think, well, if the Liverpool players and manager are being quite composed in their views on it, and then all the media are kicking up a wee bit of a fuss, then I just think kind of like, grow up, do something with your life.
Like, had it finished 0-0, and that, we wouldn't be talking about it. Right, but because he got up and 30 seconds later scored, and because Tsimikas was still off the pitch when he scored, like those little things add to it massively. But yeah, like it is a weird. Like to me, the issue is I think it's nonsense that they changed the rule because who decides if it's cynical or not? Do you know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure that Bergvall's trying to win that ball, but I'm also pretty certain that he realizes if he doesn't get it, they're away. Right? They are attacking with numbers. So. Like, yeah, it's a cynical challenge. I mean, to me, that would be the definition of it. But why is that suddenly subjective? Like last season, that's a yellow card because he takes him out and they're breaking. That's it. Regardless, you see people get yellow cards for these tiny pullbacks, right? And so it's like, well, how is that different? Because how is that not cynical? Because he slid in somewhat recklessly. I don't get that at all.
In the World Cup in 2018, England-Croatia, I'm not English, I'm not an England fan, but I was watching the game. The Croatian centre-backs, numerous fouls, yellow cards every day in the Premier League. None of them got booked until like the 80th minute because they don't want to book them because it's a big game. Well, why is there this level of subjectivity in the officiating? It's complete nonsense. Have a set of rules and don't let subjectivity rule into it. It's like a judge having more say in the rule of law. Well, you killed that guy, but because you were a bit upset that day, 2 years in prison, not 20. It's nonsense. And okay, it's football. Football is unimportant in the grand scheme of life, but it's the most unimportant thing. And these small decisions
my wife.
do matter a lot. No,
right.
But
I'm going to move along, James. So I don't know if you've all seen this nice slow-mo the club have put out there on their social channels of the ball being played from Dragusin forward and then Porro's ball over the top, which is where I hadn't realised Tsimikas was off the pitch until I saw that replay. But the reason I put this up, this is Dragusin playing the ball to Pedro Porro. And Porro actually had to go quite a way to his left and spin, because this goes back to the talking about his passing earlier, because he had one in the first half where he gave it all away. Surely he should be giving that to Pedro near his right foot, but Pedro had to come in field, turn, and then push it forward and push the ball forward. And it's just these little things that can take an average team to a good team, is getting the pass right. Where do you put it in front of the player? Do you put it to the side of the player, depending on where the opponent is? And I think it's just a bit careless sometimes from the likes of Dragusin.
I think you're being mean here, John. Dragusin clearly knew that Solanke needed an extra 5 seconds breathing time before he made that run over the top. And so he had to play it to Porro, because Porro is so eager to play that pass. And poor old Dom, I mean, yeah, like you're right. Like, he's not the best passer, right? But he's not in the team for his passing. And so, like, Porro thankfully had the ability to do that. Put it between the centre backs and the goalkeeper, and Solanke. I don't know how he got there first, because he shouldn't have done.
I mean, the ball was cut. It was cutting away, wasn't it? It was moving in towards the corner almost. It was a nice chip shot with a bit of fade.
But at any point, no, I mean, really, the only point that I think Solanke would get there first was when he did. I don't know how he got there first. And I understand the ball was, maybe moving in a direction that made it easier for him. But there was that crafty little kind of shove off when he got to the ball, because Konate was out of it completely. But yeah, it's. I mean, thankfully, the best thing about it, I thought, was the finish, because you don't see many strikers that finish that chance in the way that Bergvall did. Like, first time whipped, keeper's got no chance.
Can I make a point as well? When Bergvall scored, he just went mental. Like, he was obviously so pleased to score. He just went and did an e-slide. He didn't do none of these nonsense dances or something. He just went mental with it. It reminded me a little bit of when Kane scored against the Scum. His, like, almost from the corner flag, it ripped his mask off and just went mental. It reminded me a little bit of that. It's nice to see someone who actually, it means a lot to them to score in a game like this. I mean, I guess the semi-final against the Scouts, but, like, that was nice to see someone just do what any fan would do. So,
I also saw a video of Bergvall when he was a kid. And I don't know if it's true, but he was obviously speaking Swedish, and someone had translated it as, like, because Liverpool suck, right? So I don't know if Bergvall grew up with a dislike of Liverpool, because he could have done.
So when he was 14, Man U took him on a trial, and they didn't rate him. And then when he was 16, they also took him on a trial. They really rated him, but post-Brexit rules meant they couldn't take him at that point in time for whatever reason. So he'd been in the Man United like academy for almost 3 years or so before he came to Tottenham. So it's possible he was a United fan to an extent. So it's the
same reason we can't sign Vuskovic yet until he's 18.
Yeah, because that's why, like, just to clarify, because this is going to happen a lot now because we're signing lots of young players, right? They have to be 18 before we can sign them, right? But I've heard the Bergvall Man United stuff was made up, because if that was true, they would have just signed him in the same way we signed Vuskovic and then brought him in when he was 18.
I've seen photos of young him in Man U shirts.
Oh, I think he was a Man U. I think he followed Man U as a kid and liked them. But I think the Man U fans are jealous of a signing and are kind of lashing out a bit.
I don't know the truth of it, but, like, he obviously has some connection to Man U.
Oh, he does,
I don't know how true it is. I mean, it would make sense from my perspective if we decided to sign him because Man U scouts liked him.
Well, look, anyone who's that good is going to have Liverpool, Spurs, Arsenal, Man United, Man City, Chelsea, Real Madrid, Juventus. All their data algorithms and scouts are going to be roughly after the same 90% of players, you'd say. But it's more about who needs what player at what time and who's willing to pay that premium for that player at that time. And certain positions go so in vogue and out of vogue, don't they? Now, Declan Rice, 10 years ago, he is not a £100 million player by any shape of the imagination. But in a world of needing your, ball-winning number 6, suddenly there's such a shortage that everyone just says, I need a Rodri because there's no others. Suddenly he is worth £100 million. And I think that kind of goes with us at the moment. We kind of needed a player in every position. So we've been quite sport for choice. We've been able to go, let's just go after really talented players in all these positions. We're not protecting anyone in the first team. There's no one that's irreplaceable. And I'd say now we've finally got a spine where you go, yeah, now there's 5 or 6 players we can build around.
Yeah.
Just to answer
right.
this, Steve,
Great.
we've sort of discussed it already, but yeah, I don't think any of us think it was a foul or even a yellow card, the first one, because if he'd stayed on the ground, it would have been a foul, but he jumped over him to dive to win a free kick. So it wasn't a foul.
Can I
Go on.
interject 2 seconds? To quote my old football coach, Big Kev, he would say the first challenge was a proper challenge and he would probably clap and say, well in. Enough said.
Okay. What was best, I thought, was the knee slide. It was about 30 meters long, wasn't it? Right in front of you, I think, Jim.
It was, yeah. You just have to look at the marks in the ground afterwards. It's incredible. I think he's on for a record there. Go on.
Yeah, for me, I think irrespective of what happens at Anfield, that game, that performance, the mentality, the tweak in the system, which might have been forced on Ange because of the lack of midfielders, is so important and could really be a key point in our season and even Ange's time at the club, because we did it against City in the cup as well. We did play slightly different. The fullbacks were slightly less attacking and stayed more in position, and we were a bit more sensible. And I think, like I say, it could be such an important key game. And even if we don't go on to the final, going forward, I think it'll put us in good stead. And we haven't even mentioned Archie Gray. There's been loads of comments about him. Yet again, brilliant. That taking the ball out of the box, going past the player, and that Glenn Hoddle outside the right foot pass HG was just beautiful.
Yeah, it's Franco Baresi. For those of us who are a bit older, just to step out from defence and pass the ball like that, you don't see those passes. Like you get the ball playing centre backs, right? No, that just means someone who can pass the ball progressively. Do you know what I mean? It's not as if they, an actual midfield player who can play with, outside the foot, inside the foot, whatever. So yeah, I thought Tsimikas was going to get it, and when he didn't, I was like, oh, well, we're away. This is great. But yeah, I think the interesting thing with Archie Gray is, I think a lot of Spurs fans are now deciding when people are back, they want him in the team, but they don't know where to put him, because I think he's played most of his games this season. In fact, probably all of his minutes have been in the back four. And yet, I don't think any of us would have him over the 2 centre-backs who would usually start. And I'm not sure he gets in over whoever plays at fullback, because a lot of people would think, well, I want Spence in one of those positions right now. So it's an interesting one, because maybe he's going to be in midfield, but he's played so well with the whole pitch in front of him that we haven't seen what he's like playing on the half turn. We haven't seen what he's capable of in that area. And to be fair, he didn't play there for Leeds either. So it is interesting. But we all know he's a quality footballer, and I think that's the best thing, right? Because we spent a lot of money on him, and the fact that suddenly we've got a guy who, is basically 18 and will play wherever and give you a good performance. And he's going to count with all those homegrown, club-grown, all of those things that will matter to Spurs at some point, and he has it.
I mean,
we're almost fortunate that we've had so many injuries, because we wouldn't have seen him otherwise.
What's so jarring to me is he's so much younger than me. I'm young, right? I consider myself, I'm 15 mentally, right, still. But he's young enough that if I was dating him, our age difference would be a conversation point, right? Do you know what I mean? I I almost think
that's a weird analogy, James. I'm getting worried.
No. But
James, you'd be fine. James, the rule is you halve your age and you add 7, and so he would be okay.
That's true.
That's
based on science.
That'd be the same age.
Yeah, he'd be 18, exactly. Yeah, good point. Yeah, cheers, actually. But you know what I mean? I think he'd be perfect under Pochettino almost. But I almost think him alongside a Bissouma or a Sarr as the dual pivots with a Maddison or a Kulu in front, you have a very solid midfield base to build off of, attacking-wise. And you look at the game against Liverpool, we sat a lot deeper, significantly deeper than we usually do. That sort of midfield pairing does really work. And I think if we play like that more often, preferably most games, then we actually look like a team who can challenge for titles. We're 1-0 up in a semi-final. It might be the energy drink cup, but I've drank a few cans of Carabao, and it's not a bad energy drink, so Say the V.
Maybe we can get sponsored by them. Right. Shall we move on to Sunday's cup game against Tamworth very quickly? I'm sure we all know loads about Tamworth. I can tell you they are 16th in the National League, 2 points behind Dagenham and Redbridge. York are currently top of the National League. Interesting. Been a few years since York City have been in the Football League. They've only won one of their last 6 games. Maybe they've got their minds on something else, HG.
Yeah, don't want to get injured. Do you know, it's one of those things like this is your one chance. Like, oh, I'm sorry, my work needs me over Christmas. I can't play for you. Yeah, it's a massive occasion for them, and congrats to them. And as any Spurs fan who knows anything about Spurs, we are all worried that something awful could happen. We know it shouldn't. But we talked a little bit at the beginning of the show about the kind of what we might do team wise. Like if everyone was fit and we went with the back four we're probably going to play, we'd be like, oh, it's interesting. We're going to put a midfielder in centre back, with Spence, who's a right back at left back. I mean, all of those things would still be said. So I think that. You have to give Tamworth credit for getting there, but I don't want to see them with the ball. I just want us to score 4 goals by half time and then put the bad players in. Yeah,
2 things. Their pitch isn't a real football pitch; it's a 3G pitch, so they're playing on AstroTurf. Mm-hmm. Secondly, they hiked prices up massively for all their fans, so. And thirdly, all their fans made jokes about us being terrible. So I really hope we go there and batter them like 15-0. Because to the kid who, when we drew them, who made a joke about Tottenham not winning anything, I want to see that kid crying profusely after Dominic Solanke waxing his 8th goal.
But this is it. We've got people in their early 20s who haven't seen Spurs win anything. Like, it isn't that weird for them.
No. I recall us winning a trophy. More so because I remember John, who's in the top left, saying he broke a sofa when we battered Arsenal.
No. That was the 4-4 draw at Arsenal when Aaron Lennon scored.
Okay.
Different
That's
time.
when you broke the sofa. How did you break the sofa, by the way?
That was the same.
I jumped up and I landed anyway.
But I vaguely recall that. I mean, I still recall. Okay. I vaguely recall Gareth Bale's beating Inter. Anyway, next topic.
Yeah, but again, this is it. I mean, it's a long time ago. So I don't like the fact that Spurs are, the banter club. Frankly, I feel like everyone thinks Spurs are a joke. I don't like that, but having said that, I don't blame a bunch of kids for singing it because I used to sing songs in the 80s that were probably not true, but those are the ones I know.
No. Here's the thing, HG. I'm petty and vindictive, and I want these people to be upset. I mean, the one thing I will say is, obviously, Newcastle are going to be in the final. Thank God it's not going to be a North London derby final because I don't say that. Don't
say that.
Well, let's say it's a Newcastle Spurs final. Touch wood, my desk is wood, and we win. Newcastle can become the new banter club. It's like passing the torch.
It won't be like that.
We still will be bantered because they'll go, oh, you only beat Newcastle. Yeah. But what's mental is we've still won more European trophies than Arsenal.
Yeah.
They've never won anything in Europe. So
all of that is true. But again, I mean, I barely remember the last time Spurs won anything in Europe. I mean, I do remember watching that game, but I was 5.5.
1984, was it?
Yeah. 41 years ago.
Yeah.
Jim, my mum was 4. So.
Yeah. Jim, Ange was asked today about would Dorrington play, would Lancashire play, and he was a bit coy. He said, "I'll pick a team to win the game." What's your gut? Who do you think he might bring in, or do you think he's? I mean, the back four is going to pretty much stay. Maybe Reguilon will come on, but apart from that, I think he's struggling a bit back defensively wise.
Yeah, he's already flagged that due to the type of pitch it is, it would be silly to risk anyone coming back from injury. So that rules out any of those players like Moore or Richarlison, or there was someone else coming back on the bench as well. Anyway, anyone coming back from injury starting, I think he's going to go pretty full strength. I agree with HG. I would much rather, I think it's easier to put a game to bed and see it out than it is to put yourself in a position where you're chasing a match with 20 minutes to go. So I'd much rather we were boring. We put all our best players out. We hopefully get a 3-goal lead, and with 30 minutes to go, you make 6 subs or whatever and bring them all off, all the main people. That's the way I would go personally in this game. And I think Ange will do that. I think the only one he might rotate, he might start Reguilon, as crazy as that sounds, because there's one injury to Porro or Spence leaves us in a grave situation for the North London derby. So I think he might start Reguilon and give Spence and Porro 45 minutes in each. But I think aside from that, the only other thing is Solanke. Again, I think he'll say to him, look, you're playing one half of football today and you're playing the first half. Now go out there and put this game to bed. So I think people will see him start as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. Like, it is all about what I want is the game to be over by half time, and for TV to be like, oh, we've got to do 45 minutes more of this. Yeah, because like the longer it remains anywhere near a contest. No, we don't need that. What we need is a chance for the kids to get 30 minutes. What we need is I would play Reguilon. Like I don't see any. Like I understand that. Okay, maybe the club will want a bit of money if we sell him in January, and if he's not cup tied, then whatever could happen. I don't care about that. I think if I'm Reguilon, I'm staying at the club until my contract runs out. End of. And so you play him.
Won't be English anyway, right? Like I imagine there'll be Spanish clubs who are looking for him and German clubs. Okay, maybe there'll be some English clubs, but I mean, he spent time at Man U and they didn't fancy him. But no. I mean, Man U's quality is dreadful. Anywho,
I've got to jump, guys. Sorry, just say thanks very much.
Thanks very much for coming, guys. If you don't already watch Oh So Spurs, please do subscribe to it and get Jim on at OSS Spurs on Twitter. Is that right, Jim?
Yeah, just Oh So Spurs on Twitter and Oh So Spurs on YouTube. Same thing. But last thing was, I think Maddison will start over Kulu. That's the only other one. Anyway, I'll catch you in a bit.
Cheers, Jim. Thanks very much.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. See ya.
I have got a picture of some of the potential starting lineup. There you go. That's Spurs' potential lineup on Sunday. There we go. Anyway, yeah, I think he's right. I think there's a good chance, given that Sarr and Maddison didn't play in the week, they're going to start. So it'll be them plus one, and he will have to factor in the North London derby. I don't know what you think. My inclination at this point is he will go Biss. I think he'll put Kulu back on the right wing at Arsenal. I think he'll play Bergvall, Biss, and probably Sarr because he'll want the legs, and leave Maddison out on Wednesday. I don't know what you think.
I mean, that is a good question because like Bentancur, had he been fit, would have been one of the players to play that game. And so then it's not as if we're short of midfielders, but you get in that idea of like, do I trust Bergvall or do I trust Johnson? That seems to be the choice, right?
Yeah. Because
Bissouma, Sarr have been first choice, I feel like, for a lot of the season. But yeah, like if it's me, and I've said this plenty of times, I would play Kulu. I'd do anything I could to get Johnson out of the team, and I realise that he scored some goals. But if it's Biss, Bergvall, and Sarr, I'm okay with that. If it's Biss, Maddison, and Sarr against in the North London derby, I'm okay with that too. But we can't. I don't know. I just feel like we function better as a team without Johnson. And I realise he played most of the game against Liverpool. But I think if I was to be really harsh about that Liverpool game, our wingers weren't great. The rest of the team was okay, and Kulusevski didn't play well against Liverpool. I mean, that is true. He wasn't one of our better players. So, but I do think he's part of our best team. So yeah, he won't play at Tamworth, and he will play in the NLD.
I think Kulu definitely can often play better when he's out wide. And actually, thing is about a guy like Brennan Johnson, when the team around him is playing well, he is always there to tap in the crosses, right? Like, you can't fault him for that. And I think against Tamworth, he's the kind of guy you want to just tap in stuff. He'll do nothing, but he'll tap the ball 3 times and he'll score a hat-trick. You need someone like that because Solanke didn't do it the other week, and maybe we'd have won that game if Solanke had done that.
There is a point here that Soul Sniper is making that I actually agree with, that like Spurs are going to have the ball against Tamworth. We're not really going to deal with quality pieces of play and have to have runners, let's say. So you want to get as many creative players on the pitch because they're the ones who have to pick the lock. And if Maddison plays on the left, then in theory, you maybe,
it's my-
there's some. I feel like if you have the creative players play wide, then you can probably get away with having Lancashire as your central striker and not Solanke.
I'd almost say play Werner as our striker. I mean, is Mikey Moore fit? I mean, he's had the flu for 2 months. Does he have polio?
He was on the bench on Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
so
he'll be on the bench.
Him.
I think he might get half an hour, or maybe he'll start and get an hour.
Play him, unless he's had polio or something and his leg doesn't work. Play him. You can play Werner or someone up top. This is a perfect game for someone like Brendan Johnson. You might not rate him, but give him 90 minutes. He'll probably score a tap in, which is good for his confidence. I wouldn't play Kulu in a game like this. Look, do you know who Tamworth Rovers manager is? No, you don't. You don't know who he is.
Yeah, there you go. Andy Peets.
Look, all I'm saying is the guy who coached me in Sunday League is probably a better coach than him. And he only knew 4-4-2. Look, we should walk over them, and I don't think we should completely rotate our team because I want us to batter them 7 or 8-0. But Kulu, Solanke, etc. need a rest. There are areas where we can't rest, but I do not want to see Solanke or Kulusevski starting. No. Kinsky, absolutely. Be nice to see Dorrington, but Ange don't like him. Spence, yes, obviously. I mean, why Antonio Conte didn't like him is a bafflement to me. But I don't.
Yeah, but all the managers have. All the managers have not liked him. And I saw my osteopath today who used to work at Spurs. So I get little tidbits. He's quite guarded. And we talked about Spence today. And he did say to me, I think there's been quite an attitude adjustment with Spence. He said his view. I think he was there when Spence joined the club, actually. And he said, I think there was a real issue there to begin with. And obviously not with the fact that Conte never wanted him. That didn't help. Yeah. But there's been a change. Now, how much of a change this season is interesting because Ange wouldn't touch him. He was giving him the odd 5 minutes as a sub and then not putting him on. So it's something strange. But whatever, he's been excellent since he came into the team. And he's in the team now. So
HG, what I've seen from Spence is a very good fullback. Do you agree, HG, or am I mental?
No, I think Spence has been, very, very good. I mean, they're as weird as it sounds, like when he's had the ball, and especially I feel like teams have tried to press that side of our game, like with Gray, because he's not a left-sided centre-back, and Spence is not a left-back. But the two of them have worked well. And I did see someone comment today that they played together at Leeds because Spence was there on loan for half a season, which is just weird that was actually ever true. Yeah. But I think that you could look at the way Spence plays that position and think he maybe has been maybe better than Udogie this season at least, because Udogie's struggled to combine with Son. And so I think Spence to me has proven that he's Premier League quality. Whether he's first choice or second choice, I don't care. But he's definitely a fullback that we believe that we're comfortable playing.
I'm gonna say something controversial, right? And tell me how much you agree. I think Jed Spence is the closest we've got to replacing Carl Walker.
Yeah,
potentially could be. Yeah. I tell you one thing. Given that England have a real problem at left back, and Tuchel was there on Saturday, it wouldn't surprise me if Spence keeps playing there and playing well if he gets into that England squad.
Sorry.
Go on. Yeah.
One thing you can't deny about Jed Spence is, and I saw this in the Liverpool game, he battles. He really battles. It's he plays the kind of football that my old football coach would have loved, or any Sunday League or Sean Dyche type would love, because he proper battles and he works for it constantly. Yeah.
Thinking about it now, that's probably what I would do, because I like the idea that the fullbacks can bomb forward, they can provide the width, so I don't really need Maddison to do it. Johnson is a decent finisher. We've got to give him credit for that. So if he gets to move more central, then I think that would work too. But I just feel that one should be, I imagine it would be enough. Bergvall really impressed against Liverpool. We know that Sarr and Bissouma can do what they can do. And yeah, like I feel like I'm missing someone from that team. I don't know if I am, but it feels.
I mean,
way.
you've got the option of Moore if he's fit enough to
I,
play
I,
60.
I think he will.
Werner.
I think he will come on more. I don't think he'll start, but I definitely think
Yeah.
he'll get
You've also got
minutes.
Yang, but I imagine
And
he'll be a
Werner.
sub. So I think there's a good chance Timo will start and Madders will be instead of Basuma. I think Basuma will be rested for Wednesday, having played the full 90 on against Liverpool.
Thing I'll say especially about Bergvall, he gave 110% against Liverpool. Some of his challenges, and actually, do you know what? Even Johnson, he gave 110%. There was one incident I recall where he went for a slide challenge, didn't win the ball, tracked back another 20 meters, went for another slide tackle and won the ball. It went out for a throw-in. But that kind of effort and energy is unparalleled. And for whatever I might criticize Ange for, the fact that players are doing that does speak volumes. And that level of energy and effort and intensity is top tier.
Yeah. Okay, come on, the boys. Score prediction. What were you thinking? HG.
I mean, like when we played Marine, I think Marine were a level worse than what Tamworth are.
I think so.
And so that was what 5-0. I think
5-0. Yeah.
I think at least 4. I do think Spurs will score, and obviously they'll score. They'll win, but yeah, I want it over by half time.
Are we going to concede? I think we'll concede from a throw-in probably.
Yeah, but I mean, we can't have that with Kinsky in goal. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that would just be like the narrative of like, no, we need a keeper who's good with that. No, I just think that like Tamworth will be lucky if they make it into our half. I mean that nicely, but they're going to lump it long and hope for knockdowns. They're not going to be able to outplay us, right? Like when it gets to that level, they're good footballers, but if we sit off them, then they'll be able to play. But if we don't, then we should have the ball. We should have 85% possession. Like these guys are not professional footballers, and so Spurs really have to have the ball at all times. And it's going to be a question of like whether their keeper can we don't have to put it right in the corner. Maybe just 3 or 4 yards inside the post might be enough to beat him. You just don't know. But yeah, Spurs will win, and hopefully by half time it'll be done.
James?
9-0.
Okay. I'm thinking 4-1, but I hope it's 8-1 to Spurs. Obviously,
I don't see Kinsky. Kinsky's too good. He won't concede.
Well, Darren's saying that Austin will start in goal, and Angelo's saying Austin man of the match.
Austin is 26, by the way.
I know he is. Yeah, I would suggest that it makes sense for Kinsky to play another game with the same players. Because we've got a massive game on Wednesday, and he, as good as he was, he needs to be really on it in that game, and getting used to that back four. Even if we bring Reguilon in, would be really key. Mark's going 4-0 to Spurs. King's going 4-1, same as me. Angelo's going 1-1 at half time, squeaky bum time.
Then
he might bring on the subs who change the game. Obviously, fitness is a key thing to this. I know we play Wednesday, but they aren't getting they haven't got the level of fitness that Spurs should have.
Yeah,
I mean, got the facilities. They actually are playing a game on Tuesday as well, so they've got a game 48 hours later, which is a bit harsh, but that's the name of the game at that level, isn't it?
As HG said, they're not a professional football team. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if 1 or 2 of their players are in Wetherspoons the night before the match. You know what I mean? Like, we should be comfortably battering them.
This is a good point here, HG, from Soul Sniper. Obviously, Kinsky can't play in either 2 Europa games in January. Yeah. Obviously, Forster will probably be back, but it might be that Austin does get picked. And we soon, when we get to knockout rounds, he's going to have to make a decision. Does he drop Vicario out of the squad? Does he drop Forster out of the squad and bring in Kinsky maybe?
No, I mean, this is it. He can't do that. Like, the thing is, if he drops Forster out, well, Kinsky doesn't count as a homegrown player, right? So it's not. I don't know if he. I don't know if he can.
We've got enough homegrown players, haven't we? We've got too many homegrown players. Aren't they taking up?
Yeah, I mean,
we've only got 15 foreigners, I think.
How do I put this kindly? I don't really care too much about those Europa games. I don't. Right? Like, we'll beat Elfsborg. I think that will happen. The Hoffenheim game, we can go a bit stronger in that, because the game after that, I think, is Leicester. Do you know what I mean? We've got Leicester at home between those two ropey games. And yeah, like maybe, the league campaign is not done, but it's probably more important that we make sure we finish top 8 than it does else. And like, again, Austin didn't do badly in the Newcastle game. I'm not worried about Austin coming in and playing those 2 games. If that's the only 2 he does for the rest of the season, I'm not worried about Forster playing those games. This is not really an issue for me. Kinsky will enter the squad when he can, but that is only after the group stage is finished. So I'm not so worried about Austin needing game time for another couple of ropey games. I'm just not.
Realistically, we are going to the next stage of the Europa League. It's more a case of, do we skip around or do we not skip around? Like, you know, we're going to play more Europa League football after these 2 games. It's a case of, do we get the bye or not?
Yeah.
Okay, Austin plays. I mean, realistically, Elfsborg, they sound like a vape brand. We should batter them quite comfortably. And Hoffenheim are okay, but they've been pretty terrible this season.
They've changed their manager. They've changed the sporting director.
Look, I mean, put me in goal, and we should still win. Who cares? Realistically, okay. Austin, he wasn't bad against Newcastle, I didn't think.
I thought he was decent
for that game. Yeah. Exactly, he should be okay. But I mean, the fact that he's the same age as Vicario, more or less, is kind of mental. And he should probably go to Southampton or something.
But this is the thing.
He should be fine.
Like Brandon Austin has shown nothing in his career to go and play at the championship level, because he's barely played anywhere.
Well,
so
I mean,
no team. But this is what no team in the championship is going to sign Brandon Austin. They're not. Brandon Austin has basically decided, by signing that 5-year deal, he's going to take his 15 grand a week at Spurs and be Spurs' 3rd choice. Now, I don't know if there are many championship teams that pay their keepers 15 grand a week.
Well,
so to me, Brandon Austin has decided, I am 3rd choice keeper, and it's going to be between the others. And when Forster leaves in the summer, Austin will still be 3rd choice keeper, because we've now got Kinsky in. So I'm not so worried about Austin having to play these 2 games, because Forster may well be back, and 3rd choice keepers, they don't get match practice. That's the point.
I mean, on the one hand, firstly, I mean, I'd love to be paid 15 grand a week to sit on my arse. That'd be fantastic. Who wouldn't? But I mean, I think in the Newcastle game, he's good enough to play championship level football every week. Now, if he just wants to sit on his arse and earn 15 grand a week to do bugger all, fair enough. And anyone who doesn't like that, I mean, you would do the deal of, you get paid what, 60 grand a month to sit on your arse.
I mean, the thing is,
every single one of you is taking that deal. So
every football player gets paid to train. That's it, right? Yeah. And so Brendan Austin comes in. He's part of the squad. And I think the thing that I've loved, I mean, I watched the matchday uncut of the Liverpool game today, and it is very clear that this group of players get on. And they get on well. And that Ange has fostered some kind of, that I feel like I haven't really seen before. I don't know if we really feel like we have a top dog at Spurs, like Kane was for a long time. Kane was the man, and you kind of had his little group that followed. Doherty was part of that group when he was there, and we don't have that now. We have a squad. We have stone cold. And but we have a squad that actually seem to function, and Ange is the leader of that squad. He is, and the fact that Reguilon can come in, who's been out on the cold for all season, and he celebrates goals. He plays for the team harder than a lot of players we've seen, and he's had no chance of playing really all season. I'm really excited by the fact that this squad look like they play for each other, because it's been quite a while since I felt that way.
It does remind me a little bit of Pochettino. I've been very critical of Ange's tactical choices, because I think I'm better tactically than Ange Postecoglou. I am better. I mean, how many Champions Leagues has he won with Nottingham Forest on Football Manager? 0. I've won 10.
To be fair, you don't know that.
So get my level. Well, he's never shown me any evidence of that. So
I mean, but we know that you haven't won anything in real life, but we don't know.
Well,
maybe he secretly.
If that baldy Danny gives me the job, I'll win titles. No worries, mate.
Oh.
But
I mean, James,
but-
come on. His son's got a coffee shop just down the road from your house. You can go and have a word. Get your CV in there.
well. I mean, we've both been in there.
We did go in there the
and-
other day, didn't we?
Yes, I still have the coffee biscuit I pinched from there.
Literally giving money to the Levy family, you two. They don't need it.
He did. I didn't pay. I'm not paying £3 for an espresso. I have an espresso machine downstairs. I don't believe in buying coffee out. Anyway, my more general point is the one thing that even if you aren't happy with Ange, which is a perfectly fair criticism to make in my view, the players are all playing for him. They all really like him. And there is a very good team spirit at the moment. And they are all obviously desperate for it to work out under Ange. So there is a very good team culture and environment at the moment. And the thing is, if we somehow shithouse our way to a cup win and have a good run in Europa League, us finishing 10th in the league might not matter in the grand scheme of things. Because go, well, look, we got to Europa League final and we won the League Cup the first time in like yonks. Okay, we were dreadful in the league, but we won something. And there are some promising signs if we sort out these other areas. Now, long term, what does that mean? Different conversation.
Oh.
But I
thought
can
it was
kind of
my
want to see where the
internet gone
ball's
for a
going.
minute.
Because I mean, I'll
there we go. He's back. We lost you for a minute there,
was it
James.
me? Sorry, my internet's
I thought it was
crap.
me, but it was you. The reason I put the fixtures up, which my little graphic I made today, got too much time to spend. We've the next 4 all away, then we've got 2 home, then we've got 2 away. So 6 of our next 8 are away. And if we beat Tamworth, we could easily get drawn away. And if we end up in the playoff, we could easily be away. So it could be that 8 of our 10 games are actually away, which is going to be quite a tough run, potentially.
Yeah, but
that
Arsenal
was my
away is an easy game. We can walk there and beat them. I'm not worried about that.
I mean, they lost to Newcastle. Newcastle showed the way, and if we can be a bit more pragmatic, and I'm not saying playing defensively, just going to shout out, good evening, Adrian. If we can be a bit more sensible, like we did in this game, like we did against Man City, then we've got a chance. And defending corners obviously is such a key thing against Arsenal.
Yeah,
and just not giving their midfield, not letting Partey have time on the ball, like under Conte when we just gave him the freedom of 17 because no one bothered to press him. If we stop that happening, obviously we have to stop Odegaard. He's the main man. Saka's out, and defend well. And they've got pace, but then we've got Spence. So
I know it sounds weird because it's weird. We lost against Newcastle, we drew against Wolves, and they're not great results, right? And we haven't. When was the last time we won a league game? It's been a while, right? Southampton, I think, and they're the worst team in the league. So results have been poor for a while, and they have been. And yet here I am after one game where we beat Liverpool. We beat Man United too in the Carabao as well. But we one game, and I look at those fixtures and I suddenly see that a couple of players are getting back, and there are options off the bench, and we can rotate a bit more. And if that injury crisis does ease by 2 or 3 players over the next 3 weeks, I feel like our options suddenly feel a lot stronger. Like we all look at Bergvall and suddenly think, okay, I said this a couple of weeks ago that I wasn't sure if Bergvall was there yet and he might need a 6-month loan somewhere else. But now I don't feel that way about him. And it only took really one game to do it because he's improved as the season's gone on. Archie Gray looks like he can play anywhere and do well. So I don't feel like we massively need to get it would be nice to have another striker that we know can stay fit because Richie can't do that, and it would be nice to have maybe a right winger that can do the things that Johnson can't. But if Yang can prove that he can do it, then that person is there. And I think if there's one thing we've learned, certainly maybe I've learned from this season, is that the age of a player doesn't mean that the quality's not there. It just means that they're maybe not used to it or they're not ready for that stage. But it's taken maybe 3 or 4 regular football from Gray and regular minutes from Bergvall, and suddenly they look up to speed. So it's we've seen Spence come in and look like a first team player. And 3 or 4 weeks ago, we didn't feel that way. It's crazy how quick it's changed. Like that Southampton game is not even 1 month ago.
Scummers.
Youngster. So it does feel as if that somehow we've turned a corner by winning one game. It doesn't make any sense. But I'm so much more excited for the second half of the season because it feels like Kinsky will transform the way that we play. We don't have to worry about a back two anymore because Kinsky is now part of that defence, whereas Vicario never really was or never showed that, and Forster certainly wasn't. And you look at those big teams at Liverpool and City, and they've played and they've kept three centre backs back all the time, right? Like Liverpool would have the two centre backs and the defensive midfielder that would sit while the fullbacks bombed on. But most successful teams had kept three just in case they didn't have the ball. And Spurs have tried to do it with only two, and it's not worked. And we've screamed for a number 6 all season to be that third player. And now, weirdly enough, the goalkeeper seems to have provided us that platform where teams don't press our back two anymore because the keeper makes it a back three. And you can't press a back three, really, because then you don't have the numbers. You can play around that quite easily. So I feel like a lot has changed with just one game.
We signed some random fella from Eastern Europe who, be honest, none of us had heard of before we signed him, really.
Yeah.
Unless you're from the Czech Republic, in which case fair dues.
Like weirdly, like I'd seen him play, but that was it because he played against Eintracht.
Like, no one really.
I couldn't remember his name. Right?
Yeah, and like he was superb, and you think, well, this has completely changed how our backline works. When we had an 18-year-old fullback midfielder, Philip Lahm. I mean, he's the English Philip Lahm, playing as a centre-back, and you think, well, how good can this backline be when Christian Romero and Van der Ven are back? I mean, I hope it doesn't affect our tactics too much, because, okay, Van der Ven's brilliant. You can play a high line, and it almost doesn't matter because of how quick he is. But if you play similar tactics with a significantly improved centre-back pairing, with a really, really good goalkeeper, it's kind of okay. I mean, pretty much every team plays with a very solid foundation. You know, you go back to Johan Cruyff, you know, Pep Guardiola was his midfielder who would drop into the centre-back pairing. And in Pep's early days at Barcelona, you know, he had Busquets, Puyol, and somebody else who no one remembers as his back three almost, always passing. If your goalkeeper can be that bloody good, it's why he got rid of Joe Hart, right? Like, we all remember Bravo, Claudio Bravo, couldn't save anything. Dreadful. Good with the ball at his feet. Bam Admore. In terms of his play style, Kinsky looks like a better shot stopper than Forster, and he's good with the ball at his feet. So, kind of the same reason why the Tony Pulis midget up the road got rid of Ramsdale, because Ray is a lot better than him. And I mean, like you say, I mean, most teams defend with back three. I mean, Arsenal defend with back 8. They play 8 centre backs every game, but and a rapist.
Okay, let's move along. So I don't know if you're going to be on Monday XG, but I doubt James and I will be. So, James, what do you think is going to happen in the North London Derby? What do you think we're going to get a result there? Do you think we can get a draw? We can even get a win?
5-0 Tottenham.
Okay, we're James has been drinking clearly. HG, what's your vibe? What do you reckon? They've got a tough game Sunday, haven't they? And they're starting to lose a couple of players, which is what a shame.
I mean, the thing with Arsenal, and this is great, is that for some reason Arteta has decided that their strength is defending, and I don't know if that's actually true. Like Ødegaard and Saka makes them a much better force going forward, but if you don't concentrate on scoring, then having a great defense just means it's 0-0. And that probably suits Spurs. I feel like if Arsenal actually went out and tried to play the game, they'd have a better chance of beating us. We'd have probably a better chance of beating them too. But just like, I don't look at that Arsenal side and think, okay, like they're going to attack. And with the players that they have, I do think they should. So I'm not as nervous. But then I also, I realise that it's a big game because it's Arsenal. However, I don't know. I'm not worried. Like it certainly helps that we're out of it as far as the league is concerned. But just it's going to be I think Spurs have a pretty good chance of getting something. I think
Thing is-
the confidence in our squad, despite the results, I think is still there, and they're still playing for Ange.
Yeah. The thing is, like, they're obviously doing a lot better than us. And for whatever reason, Mikel Arteta, I mean, I've seen his behind the scenes, the Amazon documentary. He's really trying to beat Johan Cruyff, which is funny because he plays Tony Pulis level football. But for whatever reason, they sit deep all the time. I mean, he goes, "Oh, who are we? We're Arsenal." I mean, Thomas Partey plays for you, so have a word with yourself. But he just very much comes across as completely clueless to me. And he plays with a back eight most of the time. It's like, you have better players than us. Look, football back in the day, before I was born even, or when I was younger, English football especially, both teams would just have a go. And whoever was better would generally win. He's weirdly gone. Now, I don't rate that. I don't rate Pep Guardiola's football. I don't rate Johan Cruyff's football. Who I really like is that Tony Pulis fella. Let's play 8 at the back. Let's whinge about everything. And let's play defensive football and try and score from corners. That's how we're going to win the Premier League, by being complete pricks about everything. And I just would quite like to hit him. Even my mate, who's an Arsenal fan, really can't stand Arteta because of how he makes Arsenal play. So, look, I think we're going to batter them because I actually think we play much better football than them. They're going to sit back for 90 minutes. I think, for once, it's going to work out on that. And it probably won't be 5-0. It'll probably be like a 1-0 or a 2-1 or something or other. But Kinsky won't be bullied from corners, so he won't concede any set pieces. And I think that they might have better players, but they're playing negative anti-football. And we at least try and play a bit of football. So
you're getting some praise here, James. Getting some praise from Soul Sniper Gaming.
Oh,
so
Sniper Gaming. Yeah, I mean, well, Soul Sniper Gaming, you might be interested.
Oh, before you break your house.
New graphics card, 2070, super. Overclocked.
There you go. You can have talks about, you can have a chat about gaming and everything. I have no idea what's going to happen on Wednesday. I could see a draw. I just, the crowd will get behind them, but hopefully they'll be tired after Sunday. Maybe they'll get a couple of injuries at centre back, and we can just keep going.
The pressure will be on them. Yeah, absolutely will be on them. Because they are still, in their heads at least, fighting for something. And Liverpool, as we talked earlier, are wobbling a little bit. But yeah, like I look at that Arsenal side and they grind out results. They're not beating teams. They would go out and beat teams. They looked a really good side 2 seasons ago, and they weren't really stable enough or strong enough to see it out. Last year they got a bit stronger and a bit more stable, but they'd lost some of that attacking verve. And now they seem to have got even worse when it comes to attacking. It's a weird arc for them, because I feel like had they stayed the way they were that first season and just got a little bit more smart in certain games, they would be up there with Liverpool right now. But I'm glad that Arteta has suddenly turned into Lego head Mourinho, and we'll go from there. I can't really say Lego head Mourinho because Mourinho did win stuff. We've got to go with Lego head Pulis.
Yeah, Neil Warnock has more trophies. They might be low division trophies than Arteta has or will ever have. Right?
Neil Warnock's far more entertaining as a person as well. I think he's great value.
I like Neil Warnock.
Let's just touch quickly on the transfer stuff going on. Obviously, Douglas Luiz been linked with him. Rumours today are that Paratici has sort of put it across the club's table, and apparently Ange and Langer aren't convinced, which is interesting because we do need that position. So I don't know whether there's someone else, whether they just want to keep with this recruiting young players thing or what, or whether it's just the wages too much. But it sounds like he's on his way out of Juve. Interesting, Arsenal were linked with him when he was at Villa, and they might need a number 6 in the near future. We're not going to mention why, James. He's got to go to the shop in 10 minutes because he needs to go and get a beer or something. And the man that you wanted, HG, because obviously you are also a Frankfurt fan, was Moani. But the suggestions in Italy tonight are that he's going to Juve. I don't think that's a done deal. And obviously there was suggestions that Dragusin was going to Bayern Munich a year ago, and it flipped and he came to Spurs. So I don't think it's done. But what's your thoughts on Moani?
Well, I mean, I think like if Richarlison, if we decide that he's not fit enough, or maybe there's a club that want to actually sign him, because I read rumours of him maybe going back to Brazil. But if we want a centre forward who can do what Solanke does, not as well as Solanke, but he runs the channels, he can hold the ball up, he's a very good finisher with both feet. I know his record at PSG has not been good at all, but I think there are worse players out there. And if you can get a loan with an option, brilliant. I don't know if PSG want to do that loan with option. They probably want to get the money. And the same is true with Juventus, right? Like they want to be guaranteed something. Like the fact that we paid money for Bentancur, so that's fine. They were okay with that. And then the Kulusevski was okay. Well, if you like him and you give us a load of money, because again that we paid, was it 10 million to loan him, and then after that, so it's
30
just
million, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the loan was like 10 million, and then another 30 when he signed permanently. So it just feels like Juventus, their cast-offs will always be kind of wanted because Paratici has that link. But I do think that Spurs aren't going to be able to just go and cherry pick players and say, well, we'll just pay their wages, because those players are not as disliked as Werner was, when we could just go and do that. Right? I'm pretty certain Leipzig were quite happy to have him go because we were taking care of all of his wage. But I just like Muani would be a good signing, but I feel like if Juventus are in the Champions League, yeah, they are, right? So he's going to get 6 months of, a few games of Champions League football with them probably. I suspect he might think that Turin is a nicer place to live than London. I don't know, but it feels like because the Premier League, in our case, Premier League teams can usually offer more in wages than other leagues. But he doesn't need to worry about that because he's got the wage already. That's guaranteed. So it really is a case for him of where do I want to live? Where do I want to play? And maybe Juventus, there's a bigger spot opening for him because Solanke is our main man. But he's a great player. Like Kolo Muani, I would love him at Spurs. I think he would fit really well. But whether it happens.
Do you think he could do a job on the wing?
No, I don't. Like I know that for France, he has come on and done that, right, and played one of the wide attackers. I think that when he came on the World Cup final and had that chance right at the end, he was as a wide attacker then. But I don't. He's not a winger, right? To me, he's a number 9 that can run the channels and is okay out wide. But he's not a wide attacker. He wants to be in the middle. He can play with his back to goal. He can run off the shoulder. He's a number 9, a mobile number 9.
I mean, the thing for me, the big issue with Richarlison is he's on a lot of money, and we paid 50 million for him. No Brazilian football club will pay 50 million for anybody. They wouldn't pay 50 million for prime Leonardo.
But we're not going to get 50 million for him.
Exactly. But the thing is, we're not going to, we're not going to sell him for less than at least 20, 25. And most Brazilian clubs' record transfer fee is about 8 to 10 million. So he's not going to Brazil.
So it's funny, the German winger that Gary talked about at Celtic used to play for Rapid Vienna. I've been to see him a couple of times. And he looked good, but he didn't really stand out. Like I went to see Rapid Vienna, and one of their centre backs stood out a lot more than Kuhn ever did. But apparently, he's done really well for Celtic.
But then I remember reading a tweet, and it was in a Red Bull Salzburg game, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's the difference between Man U and Liverpool. Man U are looking at their striker Haaland. Liverpool are looking at Minamino, who sets up all the goals. Liverpool are better." And I mean, we know how that went, but. Yeah, no, you do have a point. It's hard to say with players. You don't know who is going to turn into a class player. When Gareth Bale first started for Spurs, he was a left back who didn't win a game for 23 games, and he turned out to be one of the best players in all of history. Probably the second or third best player in all of human history, but there you are. He was.
The answer to this, John, is no. We never know what's going to happen in the. Usually, we all get excited about players we're going to sign, and then we don't sign them, or we sign Ryan Nelson and Luis Saha rather than Luis Suarez.
And Zhemak Salaka from the Uzbekistani league.
The way Langer is operating, I'm not surprised if they're signing. That's true. Langer is definitely keeping things sort of cloak and dagger rather than Paratici, who like to throw out little rumours and links to all his Italian journalist mates.
If it's another Kinsky, then I don't care where they're from.
Okay. Right.
Yeah,
HG, thank you for joining. Oh, go on.
Just one
Give
thing.
us the last bit before we go.
Just the last bit here, like saying there are many things that are similar to Solanke. I think Mwani is better at beating his man. Like he can beat a man with skill, but he's not as thick set as Solanke is. Solanke is a 6'2", kind of brick that can move and he's not the most elegant of players. Whereas I think Kolomani is a bit more elegant, can do a quick sidestep and get half a yard like Son might do to try and shoot. That I never really see Solanke doing. But I just think he's a very good player who needs to find a new home because PSG don't want him, and that's why there are plenty of teams that are still looking at him because they're not basing it on what he's done for PSG. But I don't think it will happen, but it would be nice if it did, because if Richarlison, who I like as a player, like Richarlison is probably more like Solanke if you can get him fit. But Kolomani is a bit different as far as I'm concerned.
I think we knew about the Van der Ven signing, not necessarily didn't know much about him as a player because that was going on for a while, wasn't it? But yeah, Kinsky, Basuma both came out of the blue. To be fair, and that's what I like. It's a bit of old school. Get the teletext up. Get the looking at the back of the papers. France. Who are we signing? Yeah, I mean, Jonathan David, the stuff on him's gone quiet, and he definitely could play across the front line. He would be a sensible option. He's only got 6 months left in his contract, but he'll obviously be weighing up his options. It might be that we sign a player a bit like Timo Werner on loan so that we can make a different move in the summer, just someone to get us through to the end of the season.
I don't think it's in someone like Jonathan David. It's not in his interest to leave with 6 months, because that 10 million or 15 million that we would probably have to pay to get him now would be his wage or a signing bonus in the summer. I think he's quite happy to see his contract out there, and so I just don't see it happening. The players that are likely to kind of be like, okay, I'll go with a year left because I don't want to, maybe screw a team over, are the ones who leave with a year left. And I think if you get to 6 months, you're just like, okay, I'll just play. So it would be nice, but I think that it's about getting the right players. We talked a lot about mentality. Kinsky seems to have it, and that's crazy to say because he signed 5 days ago. But just those rumors that you get, and what Jim talked about earlier, the interview with Slavia Prague, like these are things that I feel that we're seeing.
Yeah. I mean, interesting, isn't it, that Kinsky came in because it's easier for a keeper generally to bed into a team. And there's certain positions that you sort of can, and some players come in and just fit straight into a team. Some players really struggle to adapt. With this one, Timo could be returned to Germany, but we're still liable for all his wages and the loan fee, whatever we've had to pay. So I think we could send him back. That there is rumours Frankfurt might take him.
If we agree to sell enough cans of Red Bull, will they cover his wages?
Yeah, that'd be a lot of Red Bull.
That'd be a lot of Red Bull. The guy Mamouche, is it, at Frankfurt, might be going to Man City. So I think that there's obviously rumours going that they need to replace him. And Timo, if Frankfurt can get away with paying half his wages and we pay half his wages, we'll probably quite like that deal. And I think we may well take that offer. Depends how Yang settles in and if Moore gets fit, and do we bring in another forward player?
As a Frankfurt fan, please no. It would be the definition of bittersweet that one of the players who I don't want at Spurs leaves Spurs, which makes me happy, and then goes to literally my second team, the only other team I really care about. It's not. I don't want to see it happen, even though I know it helps Spurs. But yeah, that's just. Yeah, I mean these are options too. Like, we've got good young players, but I don't know if I see any of our loan players coming back in January.
I just want to talk about this quickly, actually, because Jamie Donnelly and Josh Keeley are at Leyton Orient, who are absolutely flying at the moment. They've lost one game since October, and they've won the last 5 in a row. Keeley's kept about 7 clean sheets in 8 or 9 games. Donnelly has had 6 assists and goals in the last 5 games. Absolutely flying. They are playing Derby at 6 o'clock on Sunday.
I need to shoot off. So, but,
I'm going to wrap up. James, thanks for joining.
Cheers.
And have a great birthday weekend.
Thank you.
HG, enjoy your weekend. Are you up to anything in Vienna this weekend?
Nothing major. Just probably taking my daughter to the trampoline park again. But just relaxing. It's nice to not have to worry about Christmas or anything like that anymore. So we can just get back into a somewhat normal life.
Yeah, so thanks for watching, everyone. Please give us a like. If you're watching us afterwards, give us a comment. Give us your score predictions for Sunday and for the North London derby. And the guys will be back Monday. And